Hello.
Got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with a certainty, I have a sense of urgency. A message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with, now they looking nervously. And I don't really care what you think of me respectfully. You can kick rocks if you think you're fucking better, see. I will outwork you, turn you to an enemy. Hurt you so bad that you're gonna need some therapy. I got the motherfucking recipe. I've been cooking up hits, I'ma leave a legacy. You'll be looking small when you're standing right next to me. I'm 5'10", bitch, but I'm 10 feet next to me.
I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way. Yeah, I'ma do it my way.
I shot my wife in the stomach with 38.
Why did you do this?
She enticed me and she ridiculed me throughout my lifetime. I'll see if she's alive. She's alive? Yeah. I think she's dead.
Sensational.
Oh, motherfucker.
Where is the line for you where men shouldn't cross, where the behavior should be kept within a line?
Please define toxic masculinity.
Well, you tell me what you think it crosses a line from being a masculine, good man to a bad man.
There's no such thing as too much masculinity if it's genuinely masculine. Genuine masculinity is not out here to hurt people. It's absolutely the opposite. It's out here to protect. And when bad things happen, they call traditionally masculine men. If you need a firefighter, you need a masculine man. When you call the police because of the problem you have, you want masculine men. And I think a lot of the things I'm saying now about masculinity and how people should act in the world, how the world should function, were considered completely normal and accepted by everybody only 20 years ago. I think the world's just lost its mind. For me to stand up and say a man should protect a woman now gets to be called a misogynist and canceled. If I said that 10 years ago, everyone would say, duh. And what's funny is, everyone who argues against me and says men shouldn't protect women, especially all the feminists, if they were with their boyfriend and a man broke into their house, guess who they'd expect to go downstairs? Who do you think? Think they go themselves? Are they going to Afghanistan? No, we send men to do these things.
Ha! Copper, I'm gonna tell everybody. Ha 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 ha! Police! Ha 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 ha!
Oh.
Tee-hee. None of your business, man. Let me just get a bowl.
So you want me to make your bowl?
Please, let me just get my bowl.
White rice or brown rice, kid?
Man, let me get my white rice, bro.
Yup. All right, what type of beans?
Let me get one more scoop, bro. I don't even care, bro.
I mean, you could say please, but I'm gonna hook you up. What
Yeah,
else?
I'm good. I'll take pinto beans.
Yes, sir. What else?
Hurry, man. Hurry, man.
Huh?
One more scoop, bro?
What else?
Appreciate it. Let me get some chicken.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
Let me get 3 scoops on that, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna charge you for 3, but yeah.
I don't care.
What else?
All right, let me get cheese.
Yeah. What else?
More.
All right, buddy. You ain't gotta be so rude. What else?
I don't care, though. Let me get some sauce.
I bet. What else? Medium?
Yeah.
Okay. What else, buddy?
All right, now some corn. Now I want a lot of corn. I don't
there
even
you
care,
go,
bro.
buddy. There's a lot of corn, all right?
All right.
Yeah. Is that it?
Nah, yeah, that's what I thought.
That's what you thought?
Yep.
You know what, buddy? Do me a favor. Your money's no good here. You can kindly get the fuck out.
Oh, motherfucker.
So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit to make America what it is.
Great again.
Excuse me. Good evening, everybody. It is here in the Great British Isles. It is just gone 8:30 in the evening. And I thought I would just play a few Twitter videos. Some of them might come from TikTok. Some of them might come from Facebook. There's some other stuff in here. There's some YouTube stuff. There's some British Broadcasting Corporation stuff. And I just thought I would go live. So let's see, what am I going to share first? Hello, Halsey. Thank you very much for that comment. Here we are. Apparently, she's only 6 years old. Now, I'm not saying she is only 6 years old. 10, even 11, maybe 12. This is a bit of a problem. I don't know where this is. I don't know where in the world it is. Might be America, might be UK. Could be anywhere. But she's very young. You can see by the face. You can see by the face. I had the sort of feeling she was going to fall backwards then. But there's something wrong here.
Yeah. Yay!
There's Mum shouting, "Yay!" Oh, maybe it could be a teacher or something. I don't know. But there's a problem here. I don't really get it. I don't know how. I mean, this child wants to be out playing. Look at her. She's out there. She is wanting to go and play with all the other kids. And I just don't understand how the parents can allow her to get like that at all. How is that kid? I mean, that kid clearly wants to be doing stuff, wants to be part of society. And I'm just essentially completely shocked. Poor kid. She's got a lot of stuff that she's going to have to go through. I do hope that before she reaches, if she is only 6, I do hope before she reaches her teenage years or something like that, they have managed to get her back down to an acceptable weight. I really do. Halsey asks, have you ever seen a subreddit called Public Freakout? I have not, I'm afraid. I can easily look for it on my Reddit, so I don't need a link. Yeah, she's for a life of misery, probably the US. I don't know. I don't know where it was. Her body and joints are already ruined. If she's only 6, I think there is a way back. Halsey says it will take all her life to correct. She'll probably need plastic surgery. Her parents are responsible. Absolutely. There are whole families that look like that in the US. That is, it just boggles my mind. It absolutely boggles my mind that that it can actually happen. I understand if you've got hugely obese adults in a family, they don't go out and they don't do anything. But feeding your child portions that are larger than what an adult should even eat, and she's only 6, and you don't notice it, it's as if they do it on purpose, and that to me is really concerning. Okay, let's have a look at the next thing I've got on here. add you to the stage. It's a guy with a bull ring in his nose, and he seems to be crying. Let's see what's going on.
I don't know what to do. I have no answers. They're kicking me out of my hotel room because I asked them to wear an N95 mask.
You know, there's something beneficial about masculinity. There really is. And this person doesn't have any. He asked the hotel, why aren't they wearing N95 masks? Or asked them to put on an N95 mask. He's getting kicked out for it.
And they said that if I wanted that, I was at the wrong hotel and I had an hour to leave.
There is a way of walking that back. You go, oh, I'm ever so sorry. I didn't mean it. I was asking whether this was the hotel that the band N95 stayed in or something like that. But no, the guy has a meltdown like a toddler in a supermarket because he doesn't want to walk around with his mum doing the shopping.
I don't know where to go. I'm almost out of money.
Why are you in a hotel if you're almost out of money? Why are you demanding other people do stuff if you're almost out of money? But there's more. There is more. I have to say there's more.
More scans just keep getting added to the docket. I don't even have one fully functioning arm at this point.
More skins keep getting added to the dark. I've only got one fully functioning arm. When people say skins, are they talking about tattooing? Has he had more tattoos done? Or has he had a full skin done on his arm, which means his arm isn't functioning? Is that what he's meaning? So he's just spent thousands on tattoos, which is probably why he doesn't have any money left. Yes, Sousey, skins added to the dark. I've no idea what it means. Maybe it's his own dark side, you know. He thinks that his skin is devilish, so he's added skins to it or something. I've no idea. Maybe his arm is devilish. It's a schizophrenic arm and it does its own stuff, so he has to put a new skin on it. I've no idea. But he's currently only got one fully functioning arm at this point. I don't know what that means.
Where do
But he's not thinking straight. You know, the toxic masculine trait of stoicism could help this person right now. Right now, it could help you. But what the hell did I just do? Yeah, be toxic masculine. Don't be toxic toddler, I think. Maybe he is hallucinating. Maybe that's where his last few thousands went. Now we're back at the beginning here. Where's he going here? It doesn't want to play anymore. Let me stop it and refresh.
I don't know where to go. I'm almost out of money. More skins just keep getting added.
More skins just keep getting added to the dark. Maybe that's his depression. Maybe that's what he's talking about. It's like, I'm already depressed and that's the dark. And this is another added layer of skin or darkness that prevents the light from coming through. Maybe that's what he means.
Into the docket, I don't even have one.
But what the fuck's it got to do with only having... He doesn't even have a fully functioning arm. What? 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 Doesn't even have one fully functioning arm? He's just been using it, sticking his hand in his face to cover up his snot and grime.
Fully functioning arm at this point. Where do I...
Oh my God.
My mom isn't answering the phone.
My mom isn't answering the there was a film called Kiddled back in however many years or even decades ago. Kiddled. This is a Kiddled.
Oh, and it's not like we were strange. I literally... Because she was super abused.
She was super abusive. I wonder where he got that language from. My mum was super abusive, but then you rang her and she's not answering the phone because you've probably told her she was super abusive and you disowned her in another one of your little paddies. It's like, what's going on? I think this guy maybe needs to not be living out in the world. Seems to have some mental health issues. Really? He's working himself up into a lava.
And I still want my mom, but I don't know what to do. Where do I go? What do I do?
Where do I go? What do I do?
My doctor just called me to do an anxiety.
My doctor just called me to do an anxiety and depression exam. Well, I mean, the start of this is the key to all of it. This is the key.
I don't know what to do. I have no answers. They're kicking me out.
I demanded they wear an N95 mask. I demanded somebody else overrides their own freedoms just to meet my desires. I demanded that I should be entitled and put on a pedestal, and they should wear a really expensive mask that nobody in the world needs to wear now except doctors and nurses when treating patients in hospital when you're operating on them. This is where this has come from. Hey, Nerdy's here. Nerdy's here. What's going on here? Is it meanness? That reminds me of the janitor, #1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. What's going on here then? Anyway, that's the end of that one. I'm going to blow my own trumpet here. I was on ever since this stuff with Signor Trumpy getting his ear blown off. I did say it on Brojo's either last night or the night before. I said, where's he get the money from? Where? I mean, if he's just working as a kitchen back kitchen worker in a minimum wage job, where's he getting the money from for explosives, burner phones, detonators, blah blah blah? And I didn't mention anything about the gun because he'd taken it from his dad. But this is somebody called Laura Loomer. I just want to know, how does a 20-year-old nerdy kid have 3 encrypted overseas bank accounts? Now, I didn't know he'd got any overseas bank accounts. I didn't hear anybody talking anything about any bank accounts at all. But apparently, according to Laura Loomer, this 20-year-old nerdy kid has 3 encrypted overseas bank accounts. Where does he get the money for that? Is his dad involved here? Who was sending him money overseas? Who bought him a drone? I didn't even know about a drone until earlier on, and somebody was saying, I was watching something that was saying the Secret Service didn't even put a drone up, but apparently this kid did put a drone up before the event. So he had a drone, and he's probably got a drone from his dad. His dad probably bought him one. He looks like a typical middle-class nerdy lad in Pennsylvania. Who bought him a rangefinder scope? Exactly. Who bought him a van and explosives and detonator and electronic stuff? Yeah, these things aren't cheap. Most 20-year-olds can't afford gas, let alone an assassin's kit and expensive tech accessories. I'm 100% with Laura Loomer here. These are questions that if he's got 3 encrypted overseas bank accounts, they should be able to find out who sent him the money. But it does say encrypted, and they are overseas, which might mean if it's Switzerland, I mean, that would raise even bigger flags. It costs you a fortune to have a Swiss bank account. Could it be the British Virgin Islands or something? I haven't got a clue. But there's plenty of places, Panama, plenty of places where they're not going to give any information out to anybody, except the CIA when they come knocking and telling them what they're going to do to them. Anyway, I did find that really interesting. I'm sort of blowing my own trumpet. Daras Samem, hello, whoever you are. Raphael, I blame the parents and white culture. No, it's white man culture, please. Nerdy, maybe he also trained as a locksmith. Maybe. And maybe he trained as an expert gymnast to get up onto that really nasty sloped roof that was really dangerous to be on. Maybe he had Spider-Man gloves. Something like that. Kind of. What's going on here? Why are you referencing Reddit again, Halsey? What's the am I the asshole bit? Everyone knows I'm an asshole, but oh yes. No, not that one. Somebody else posted something. Yes, we are judging strangers. Kind of an am I the asshole kind of situation. Absolutely right. I don't know if I should show this. I really don't. But the world is really, really strange and weird. This has gone on. Where's it gone on to? I think this might have been off Twitter or something. But hey, I'm not monetized. It doesn't matter if I lose this channel anyway. Who cares? It's not really that special. But I don't think you're gonna like this. But free speech and all that. Subreddit, am I the asshole? AITAH. I'm not going to repeat what's written on this thing's t-shirt. I don't even know what this thing is, but it does look like there's a bulge in their pants. I'm all for free speech, but I'm not sure myself. That's Tog. I'm not sure it is ironic. I don't think so. I think you were saying Daros Samem was Tog, but I just thought it would be a joke. All the way. No, I'm going to stop that one now, and that is getting removed from my my stream completely. Okay, this is a bit of a fun one. I'm going to take the piss out of America here. I hope you can all read, because this is not in American language, but you should be able to read what this says and understand that I am quite happily taking the piss. Taking the piss out of la 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 America. I wanna be in America.
Вот пример нас на войне, нахуй, ебаный рот. Самые крутые в мире, блядь, леопарды, блядь. Это пиздец, это супер техника, супер пиздец вообще, нахуй, ебаный рот, нахуй, блядь. Приехали, нахуй, и умылись тут, нахуй, все, блядь, кровью, нахуй, эти леопарды. Ни автоматозаряжания, нихуя ничего нет. Все, блядь, нахуй, тяжеленные, буксуют, нихуя толку от них нет. Вон их похуярили сколько, напротив нас, вот здесь, нахуй, ебать. Кладбище, нахуй, устроили, ебаный рот. Точно так же с их самыми крутыми Абрамсами будет. Тоже это все распиаренная хуйня. И так во всем. Любой наш автомобиль возьми, военный, нахуй, блядь, и ихний, нахуй. У нас, блядь, жрет, что хочешь, нахуй, блядь. На коленке можно сделать, отремонтировать. У нас, блядь, техника, блядь, вот эта вся, она предназначена для войны. А у них она предназначена для тухлых, блядь, понтов, нахуй, блядь. Вот попонтоваться.
Let's just have a quick look at those words there. And America's military might is meant for weak showing off, for effing nothing but showing off. Look how cool it is. It has all the bells and whistles. It's got this, it's got that. Here, buy our stuff. Yeah, this guy is taking the Mickey out of the American military.
У него там то, все, хуё-моё, нахуй, ебать. Вот покупайте наш. Они же, сука, торгаши, нахуй. Вот они и впаривают по всему миру. Ихний Патриот, нахуй, в жопе, нахуй.
A total
нахуй,
piece of crap is the Patriot.
Нахуй, зараз, блядь. Он, блядь, выпускает 35 всех своих ракет, нахуй, по ложным целям, нахуй. И наш самолет его спокойненько въебывает. Охуенно супер патриот, нахуй, которым всем впаривают. Саудовской Аравии, Корее, блядь, Японии, Европе, блядь. Всем-всем. А мы, оказывается, вот так, опа, имеем, нахуй. И чё, нахуй, это американцы, нахуй. Да обосрались, нахуй. И еще обосрутся, нахуй, блядь. У меня все, нахуй.
I hope you caught that. I mean, this is quite an old TikTok. It is TikTok, as far as I can tell. But I mean, they're not really that impressed with the American military might, the military industrial complex. So let's see. Is this working this time, Sandy? Sandy, tell me.
Sandy, my darling.
Tell me. Did any of that work? Am I going to keep it public so you can watch the first 27 minutes? There's not a lot really for the first 27 minutes. Yes, Raphael, of course. Yes. I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. Yes. No, Nerdy says no, it still doesn't do anything but crackle. Bloody Greece. Can't do anything right with them.
That's racist.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to the Great British Broadcasting Corporation. Now, I find this absolutely fascinating. I've never seen anything like this in the British Parliament. It is amazing. And I'm going to give the Speaker of the House 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 for this. Actually, no. No, I'm not going there yet. Not yet. Because it'll fit really well with some other stuff that I'm going to do about right, I've just changed things around. Okay, right, I'm going to do something else. So this is going to be really quick. Let me present some Great British Broadcasting Corporation in-depth journalism. So we all know about CrowdStrike, I'm sure. This is how China swerved the worst of the global tech meltdown. Now, there's only a couple of bits on this. While most of the world was grappling with the blue screen of death on Friday, one country that managed to escape largely unscathed was China. The reason is actually quite simple. CrowdStrike isn't used there. Very few organizations will buy software from an American firm that, in the past, has been vocal about the cybersecurity threat posed by Beijing. So, reports of outages in China, when they did come, were mainly at foreign firms or organizations. In particular, international chain hotels such as Sheraton, Marriott, and Hyatt. Yep. That'll do. That's all I need to show. China didn't get caught by the American bug. I'm waiting for Xi Jinping to come in and go, America, it was America. China. So I'm waiting for Xi Jinping. It's the American bug. It started there. Yeah. Right, that's enough of that one. Oh, this is interesting. I only added this in right near the end of me looking around. A US lady, again reported by the Great British Broadcasting Corporation, a US lady was freed after 43 years in prison for a murder she did not commit. This is her, I think. I'm assuming both of these photos are her, and one was when she was put into jail at the age of 20, and now at the age of 63. Sandra Sandy Hem spent more than 43 years in prison for a 1980 murder in St. Joseph, Missouri. Her conviction has been overturned. When she was 20, she was found guilty of stabbing to death library worker Patricia Jeska. She was given a life sentence. There was no evidence that linked her to the crime other than a confession she gave under heavy sedation while in a psychiatric hospital. Now 64, she's believed to have served the longest known wrongful conviction of a woman in US history, according to her representatives. Now, I don't know what the longest wrongful conviction of anybody is in US history for the amount of time you might have spent in prison, but blaming it, 43 years, that's like, it's her whole adult life. I've no idea what her adult life would have been like if she was in a psychiatric hospital and she maybe had whatever. I have no idea. I don't know what it would have been like. I don't know whether she would have been kept in this hospital for the whole of those 43 years or not. I haven't got a clue. I don't know. But the Innocence Project has got her out of there. Now, the Innocence Project usually only get people out on DNA evidence. So this is really interesting. While she is no longer incarcerated, her case is still being reviewed. The judge, Ryan Horseman, gave an 118-page ruling that overturned her conviction on the 14th of June. So that's a month ago. Ms. Hem's lawyers had clear proof of her innocence, not her not guiltiness, her innocence, including there was evidence that was not given to her defense team by the prosecution at the time. Judge Horseman concluded that this court finds that the totality of the evidence supports a finding of actual innocence. The review found that local police ignored evidence that directly pointed to one of their own police officers, Michael Holman, who later went to prison for another crime and died in 2015. His truck was seen in the area the day of the murder. His alibi could not be corroborated, and he used Patricia Jeska's credit card after claiming he found it in a ditch, and a pair of distinctive gold earrings identified by the girl's father were also found in his home. None of this information was disclosed to Ms. Hem's defense team at the time. Ms. Hem, 20 years old, was interrogated by police several times while she was under the influence of antipsychotic medication and a powerful sedative, after being involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital. She had been receiving occasional psychiatric treatment since she was 12. Her responses were monosyllabic, and she was not totally cognizant of what was going on, court documents showed. Unbelievable. She could hardly even hold her head up straight and was in pain from muscle spasms. There was no forensic evidence. She had no motive. There were no witnesses linking her to the crime. This is pretty horrific. The last sentence here. Defense lawyer Sean O'Brien told the Star she will still need help because she spent most of her life in prison and was ineligible for Social Security. Now, I don't know what's going on here. This was 1980. We know in the UK, in Great Britain, we had totally corrupt cops, particularly when it's anything to do with the IRA, Ireland, especially in Birmingham. But the ability of a police officer, who it looks like he was the guilty one, although that did not go to court, so very difficult to say that. So allegedly the guilty one, was he able to maneuver this? Was this purposefully maneuvered by people in power so that, oh, look, she's a nutter anyway, she's in a psychiatric hospital, she's going to have a crap life, she's going to be incarcerated all her life anyway, so let's pin it on her. Is that what they thought? I really would like to see the local police that allegedly investigated this case and the prosecution team. I'd like to see them on trial for this. This, to me, is absolutely horrific. And it doesn't matter what country it's in, because I think this type of shit was going on everywhere in the West. And it probably still goes on bloody everywhere. She'll end up with a very fat check, says Sandy, and Housey follows up with, they stole her life, and I hope she has the energy to pursue that. See, I've no idea about her mental state, but her life, I don't know what her life would have been like, but nobody deserves to be fit up like that by anybody, especially not people in power. Absolutely disgusting. Certainly rare, but certainly not unheard of across our various countries. Housey says they had to fight to get her out because they wanted to keep her in for 2 assault charges that happened 20 years ago when she was assaulted by another prisoner, or when she assaulted another prisoner but was likely attacked and was defending herself. Charges that happened while in prison. She would not have been there if not for the wrongful charge. Exactly. 43 years, life in prison. On top of that, they're telling her she can't get social. That's what I said, yeah. That was in the BBC. So I'm assuming Housey's aware of this story. Or there's some other reporting going on from the United States. I didn't bother looking up at anything else. I was just taking the Great British Broadcasting Corporation's fantastic journalism as true, which is often a very daft thing to do. Let me get rid of that. Right, let's go back to the Great British Broadcasting Corporation and look at some politics. Now, this little bit of politics is absolutely hilarious. Now, what is hilarious about it, if I can be professional and actually present what I want to present, I know it's difficult, but right, there we go. MP criticised for behaving abominably in the Commons. Now, these are the boxes, right? Over here on the left, where the 2 people are stood up. On the left, he's stood in front of a box. On the right, she stood in front of a box. He's got papers on his box. She hasn't got papers on her box. And they're both at the box. And that ain't supposed to happen. Now, the person that's speaking is the Secretary of State for DEFRA, the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And the lady here is, he's Labour. The lady is Victoria Atkins, and she is a Tory. And I'm going to give the speaker, I think I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10.
And we'll reduce our exposure to volatile global fossil fuel prices, protecting farmers' energy bills against future price shocks. I'm very sorry, there's only 3 minutes left, and I need to cover the points that have been raised. We'll do that. They had their time. We'll do that by switching on GB Energy as we make Britain a green energy superpower. And we'll speed up building flood defences to protect rural homes and farms and rebuild our NHS with 40,000 more appointments every week, 8,500 more mental health professionals, and a hub in every rural community to tackle loneliness and the mental health crisis. Order!
Steve, the Right Honourable Lady has behaved abominably. Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The Right Honourable Lady has behaved abominably. Now, if you can see this picture here, exactly where I stopped it, she's laughing, right? Now, I want to take it back a little bit more, because she was not the only one that went up to the box. Here is some other lady in white, another Tory. What is she doing at the box? What is going on? These Tories have been in power since 2010, right? Until a couple of weeks ago. 14 years in power. How entitled must they be that they jump up? This is not supposed to be a debate. It's not meant to be a debate where you jump up to the box whenever you wish and just start shouting at the person that's already talking. There are rules that are in place in the British Parliament. I have never seen this before. This is absolutely fantastic. But the Deputy Speaker, I've got to say, was a little bit weak. He called her. He said, "You're behaving abominably." And I think in my mind, he should have said something like, "Just like a child. And if you don't behave, I will send you out to see the headmaster," or something along those lines. And he could have really taken the piss. Or he could have said, "I will get the teachers to take you to the headmaster," pointing to the guy that's in the top right with the big ginger beard, who I think is one of the whatever guards they are. And the other thing that he could have said is he could have said, "I would like you to leave. I need you to go and sit on the naughty step." But he was a bit weak. He was a bit wet. I mean, he handled it, but he didn't do anything about this lady in white that came up to the box for some reason. There needs to be some kind of pushback against this, some kind of blowback against the ridiculous Tories. I always resist throwing a nice clean box, especially if it's very sturdy, says Housey. And Nerdy does love a nice box. Okay. Right, I am now going to compare this to America. Nerdy's showing off his knowledge of British Parliament rules and laws and regulations here. The second she stood up, he needed to have shouted, "Order! Order!" That's absolutely right. That's what he should have done. And he was very weak and very wet. He actually, before he shouted order, he had looked up at other people on his right-hand side as if to get permission. Let's see if we can find it. Let's see here. So, Ms. Atkins is playing with her box. Now, watch the speaker here. Watch the speaker. Let me hide Nerdy's thing. Watch the speaker look over to his right.
Professionals and a hub in every rural community to tackle loneliness and the mental health crisis. Order!
Did you see that? Did you see that? It's like he turned to the right as if to say, should I intervene here? Doesn't he? He's the bloody deputy speaker. He's supposed to know the rules of Parliament. I don't even know what the rules of Parliament are, but he's supposed to know. But the two of them, both of them playing with their boxes, stared straight at him. And Ms. Atkins scuttles off. He scuttles off. She starts arguing with the speaker, shouting at him. It's like, not good. Not good. She should be fined 5 years worth of wages, which should take it all the way through. Now, I've got a couple of really interesting videos now, so I'm going to take it to the other side of the pond. I'm going to take it to America. I'm not sure that he's got a gavel, but I could be wrong. Point of order doesn't work because when the speaker shouts order, order, he is telling people order. When somebody from the benches shouts out point of order, they're asking the speaker if they can make a claim that there is an issue arising and they need to correct it. So yeah. What else we got here? He is kind of like the chair, right? Yeah, the speaker. He's the chair. He is the chair. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Chairman. Used to be Betty Boothroyd. She was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the other guy had to tell him to do his job. I'm thinking that, or I'm wondering whether I got a feeling he tried to shout order and then he goes, my microphone's not on. Oi, turn my microphone on. He might have done that. So I don't know. Well, the speaker is meant to be non-partisan, but they're always chosen usually from the government's side, I think. No, I'm wrong there. They are chosen by the MPs, and then they have to be objective. So you're right. Their role is that they are objective, but they are not necessarily non-partisan. I know a thing or two about parliamentary rules. Yes, so do I. Okay, right. We're going to get into some American stuff now. This is interesting stuff. I do like this stuff. Okay. Let's add you to the stage. Now, I really wish British politics was a bit like this. I mean, we have got our select committees that are supposed to ask questions of people here in the UK Parliament, but they're nothing like this.
Tell me what Article 5 of the Constitution does.
Article 5 is not coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. How about Article 2?
Neither is Article 2.
Okay. Do you know what purposivism is?
In my 12 years as an assistant attorney general and my 9 years serving as a judge, I was not faced with that precise question.
12 years as an assistant attorney general, 9 years as a judge. She is being put forward for, I think it's Supreme Court, but we'll find out later on. It's some kind of high-level position. She doesn't know what the Second Amendment or the Fifth Amendment are. As for purposivism, I haven't heard of that. I wouldn't know. I do like this slim guy in the back, though, with his N95 mask. I just thought I'd add that in.
We are the highest trial court in Washington state, so
Maybe it's Joe Biden and he's saving everybody else from getting COVID. Maybe.
Frequently faced with issues that I'm not familiar with, and I thoroughly review the law, research, and apply the law to the facts presented to me.
Well, you're going to be faced with it if you're confirmed. I can assure you of that. Can you tell me what the independent state legislature theory is? I'm just asking you, not your opinion of what is it? It's before the Supreme Court now.
In my 12 years as a Washington State Assistant Attorney General, and that particular
his whole life just breathed out of him. Then he just went, "Oh my God, right." Where's my oh, it's got to be in here somewhere. Oh my God. Oh, I got to bring that one in. It's like, what? All right.
Particular doctrine was not presented to me.
I'm out of time. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, this committee is in the process of considering 29 judicial nominees in a single morning. Now, it's not uncommon.
Judicial nominees. I don't know where they're being nominated to. I don't know, but she was unable to answer one question, and she was 12 years as an assistant district attorney, 9 years as a judge. Can you imagine being judged by her? I don't know what's going on, but I do really enjoy this type of haranguing.
When a new Congress comes in to take up nominees that didn't pass in the previous Congress. But typically there's a reason that nominees don't pass in the previous Congress, which is they are often the most extreme and most problematic nominees. In this instance, that is emphatically the case. And many of these nominees are quite literally the most extreme judicial nominees I've seen in 10 years on the Senate. Part of the reason the Democrat majority is trying to move 29 nominees in one morning is to flood the zone with so many bad nominees that nobody can focus on how utterly unqualified these nominees are to be judges. The nominee.
How utterly unqualified these people are to be judges. Thanks to Irenic and Sandy. So Irenic says the bench. Okay, but that doesn't help with which bench. So Sandy helps. Federal judges are appointed. And Sandy says most likely the federal justice system. Irenic says they're appointed to the bench, i.e. they become a federal judge. Nerdy. I'm surprised you managed to get that through YouTube's latest, stringent, and exceptionally strict rules here. Very, very naughty. Very naughty.
Being considered right now, Nancy Abudu, Senator Lee did a good job of walking through her extreme record. She was the deputy legal director at the Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization that has a long and shameful history.
Southern Poverty Law Center. Even I have heard of the Southern Poverty. Was it the Southern Poverty Law Center? So yeah. So that's how famous, I said, without the in. Maybe it should be infamous. This group is.
Of labeling mainstream conservative groups as, quote, hate groups. And the SPLC's history is so egregious that it prompted a violent hate crime. In 2010, the SPLC designated the Family Research Council as a hate group, and 2 years later, a man targeted the Family Research Council using the SPLC's hate map and came in and shot and critically wounded the council's business manager and attempted to murder several council members before being heroically.
How about if you have a property?
I love adverts, especially UK property adverts.
By the building security guard. He stopped. Attempted to murder several council members before being heroically stopped by the building security guard. The SPLC in 2019 authored an article that accused Republicans, including 3 members of this committee, of holding, quote, open white supremacist views. Mr. Chairman, that's ridiculous. You know that's ridiculous. Political rhetoric is one thing, but when you have extreme leftists falsely claiming white supremacy, it illustrates that you are dealing with radicals and partisan zealots. Nancy Obodo isn't the only nominee that this committee is trying to move forward. This committee also has before it Nusrat Chowdhury,
That's
who is
racist.
another extreme zealot. Ms. Chowdhury believes that America is through and through an evil and racist place.
What?
And she's not been shy about explaining that. She has stated that, quote, the structure of racial discrimination in America, quote, is so deep, so pernicious, that you have to, quote, use the law as a tool of social justice.
That's racist.
Does anyone think she's going to stop
It's a power
quote,
I was
using the
born
law as a
with.
tool of social
Call it my
justice if she
white
ascends to
side.
the bench? The most concerning thing Ms. Chowdhury said is she participated in a panel at my alma mater, Princeton University.
What I really love about this is how scathing it all is. There's no holding it back. There is a certain gravitas to how Ted Cruz here is actually giving his position on this. But it is absolutely scathing. There are no holds barred. I absolutely love it.
The panel was entitled How Activism Informs Policy. And one of the panelists there suggested that police officers kill unarmed black men every day.
I certainly couldn't be bothered to go find out why you accuse me of being a DEI hire. You mean, old, nasty, opinionated British quantahaha. Sandy, who did that to you? I'll go get them for you. Ch.
Now, there's a technical term for that statement. That's called a lie. It's not even kind of sort of right. It is wildly, totally false. During her nomination hearing, she was asked about a tweet that came from that event, which said that she had agreed with the statement that police officers kill unarmed black men every single day. At first, she claimed she couldn't remember making the statement. Then later in the same hearing, she claimed she did make the statement, but she did so, quote, as an advocate. She said so 3 separate times. Well, I just, did it as an advocate. Now, most of the members of this committee have practiced law. The last I checked, as an advocate, you have an obligation not to lie.
You cut your hand and had to drive yourself to the emergency room. I hope you're all right, Sandy. See, the thing is, I don't remember what day that was, because you cutting your hand and driving yourself to the ER is not something I would remember. But apparently, I said it. I'm a naughty guy.
I need an adult. I need an adult.
I'm an old British, opinionated, nasty quantahaha.
And that is a brazen lie that is dangerous. Now, subsequently, she sent a follow-up letter after her hearing saying, oh, never mind, I didn't say it. The thing that she had justified as, oh, I said it as an advocate. Afterwards, she sent a letter and said, no, actually, I didn't say it. Republicans on this committee asked for a follow-up hearing to ask about her miraculous new memory post-hearing that she didn't say such a harmful thing to police officers across the country. Sadly, the chairman wouldn't give us a new hearing. Another of the judges being considered today.
I'm guessing that lady didn't get appointed.
Kenley Kia Cato. At her hearing, I asked her a very simple question.
Were all of the 29 people that were put forward, were they all one gender by any chance? I don't know what's going on here. Why are we only getting criticism of DEI hires? Oops, sorry, Sandy.
Is racial discrimination wrong? She was utterly unable to answer it. Today's Democrat Party embraces racial discrimination, believes that discriminating based on race, the reason, Mr. Chairman, and you are smirking.
Oh, come on, Sandy. come on. We know you wouldn't be a much happier human for anything. I'm lying. I'm only joking with you. I'm only joking.
Working, but the reason she couldn't answer it is because in law school she had written an article advocating racial discrimination against Asian Americans. Now, Ms. Cato is Asian American, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have the article in front of me, but she essentially said that Asian Americans who didn't support explicit racial discrimination against Asian Americans weren't sufficiently woke. They weren't sufficiently enlightened.
That reminds me of the stuff that white people have been told recently. You have to go into a meeting that's chaired by some other ethnicity person, whoever, and then stand up and apologize for your ancestors' bad behavior and for being white. White man.
That's racist.
I refused. I refused to turn up to any of that shite.
Enlightened. Now, I think that's a noxious position. But that's, of course, why she couldn't answer that racial discrimination was wrong, because she is an advocate for racial discrimination. Another one of the nominees being considered this morning is Dale Ho. Dale Ho is a self-described, quote, wild-eyed sort of leftist. Now, let me be clear. That's not my terminology. That's how he describes himself. He says, I am a...
Yay! There's a bloke. We have some equality.
A, quote, wild-eyed sort of leftist. He wrote about how he's motivated each day by his hate.
No, nerdy. No, there is no cure. It's a lifelong illness.
For conservatives. That's the word he used, hate. Now, I want you to pause for a second and imagine. I'm going to ask the Democrat members of this committee to do something, which is imagine you're in somebody else's shoes. Engage in empathy. There are actually conservatives in the state of New York. Now, the Democrat governor of New York said to Republicans in New York, you're not New Yorkers, get the hell out, go to Florida where you belong. There's an arrogance to telling your voters that.
That's racist.
There's nothing different between that and you're not British, go back to the country, to your country. Go back to your own country. You don't belong here.
That's racist. That's racist. That's racist.
I don't know how many times I can press this button until it breaks. But if anybody saw my previous video about fascism, which was when I was talking on Brojo's show and I clipped it, that's exactly what fascism is. And it is, by definition, a leftist aspect. Fascism is of the left. Fascism is exactly what leftists push. And they become more and more and more fascist as they become more extreme in their leftism, which is why the leaders of such far left groups can implement the most fascist, disgusting stuff, where, as in this clip that Ted Cruz is providing an example of, if you do not believe the same things that these other fascist people do, it's time for you to leave. You either leave of your own volition, or in the cases of the previous leaders of these fascist groups in Germany, Italy, China, Soviet Union, you left this mortal coil at the end of a rod or a noose or a bullet or a knife. Or maybe you were even just burnt to death in a church or temple. You know, there's a particularly pernicious aspect to the far left, because they don't believe that they can do anything wrong or that they do anything wrong. They don't believe they can even have wrong thoughts or bad thoughts. Nothing that they believe could be morally incorrect or morally bad. As this example is that Ted Cruz is given, that this bloke Dale, whatever his name is, was really, really happy to describe himself as exceptionally left-wing, and that these people should self-exile to somewhere else because they're not wanted in New York, which is dehumanizing and fascism in and of itself. And yet he won't see anything wrong with what he said, because you're not human. He's already dehumanized you. You are not human. It's exactly what the Austrian guy with the funny mustache said about the people who were of Israel. Dehumanize them. Made sure everybody thought they weren't human so that they could be treated like cattle and sheep that could be sent to the slaughterhouse. That's exactly how bad fascism is. It leads to that type of indoctrination of the people that follow it. The people that they are against are not human. Therefore, you can do anything that you like to them because you're not. They don't have human rights if they're not human. That's where fascism gets you to, and fascism is socialist.
That. But it's one thing when you're an elected official if you want to demonstrate that kind of arrogance, but one would think that a federal judge has a different obligation. So I would ask the members of this committee, imagine for a second you were a Republican. Imagine for a second you were a conservative who happened to live in New York City, and you look up in New York City.
Yes, Antifa is fascist. The group that calls himself anti-fascist is fascist by definition. No, I like my box. And Sandy, no, I was going for that one. Sandy is looking for Pandora's box still. She's looking for the box, not what's inside it. I hear passing away takes care of it. It does. In a leftist's mind. That's exactly what it is. Big T truth is not in our reach unless we are very honest and unbiased with zero emotional investments in outcomes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, each individual will have their own emotional investment in their own outcome. And they'll be very unhappy if actually they're not good enough. That's what a merit-based system is, meritocracy and hierarchies. The people who are the best get to the top. They rise to the top. And everybody wants to get to the top. And so there will always be an emotional investment in it. The zero emotional investment is society gives zero emotional investment. In each individual stuff, society's emotional investment is in the outcome for society. And that's where the big T truth comes in. The best people do the best jobs, the highest paid jobs, because they are good enough to actually be able to deliver, because their expertise, they deserve that job. They have the skills to be able to do it in the right way that makes society better. But some people are just not suited to that area. It's like, okay, yep, exactly. So I'm with you there, Halsey. I'm absolutely with you. Irenic says you've got two boxes in front of you. It sounds like a riddle. You've got two boxes in front of you. You know nothing except one of them is Pandora's. You won't know until the box is opened. Which box do you open? Do you open one of the boxes or do you open both of them? Do you make sure that you open Pandora's? It was a riddle. Oh, man, what's your ideal model of a political structure if you had no example to follow, no existing structures to base yours on? Well, that's exactly where our structures came from. The original structure, there wasn't one. There wasn't an original structure. And so over time, lots and lots of different structures have been tested. And the one we've actually got has turned out to be pretty close to the best in terms of a structure. But it has to have very, very good counterbalances to it to make sure that you don't end up with extremists in power that can overrule the current structures and just take over from a nasty side of doing things. That's my view of it.
On the federal bench, and you see a judge who's described himself as a wild-eyed sort of leftist, his own words, who is motivated every day, who gets up every day, and what gets him going is his hatred for you. You know, this is the kind of fellow that should have worked at the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's the kind of radicals who this administration is nominating, and yet that is not the kind of person that should be a federal judge. And I'm going to talk about one final nominee that isn't before us today, but that will be soon, which is Charnel Beckelgren. Now, the members of this committee are aware of just how wildly unqualified this nominee was. She's been nominated to be a federal district judge, and our colleague, Senator Kennedy, whose cross-examinations on this committee have now become legendary, he asked her what Article 5 of the Constitution was. And she responded saying, well, she couldn't remember, she wasn't familiar with that. He then asked her what Article 2 of the Constitution was. And she said, well, that's not coming to mind either. It was a stunning display of her lack of qualifications to be a federal judge. Now, to be clear, asking someone what Article 2 of the Constitution is not some obscure legal.
Don't risk losing your photos and videos. This innovative solution.
Do not risk losing your photos.
There are questions you can ask about bizarre, hidden legal theories that would be a gotcha, that wouldn't be fair. Not knowing what Article 2 of the Constitution is, which is what establishes the president and the executive branch. Any first-year law student who didn't know what Article 2 of the Constitution was would flunk con law. And I will say Chairman Durbin subsequently said publicly she was likely to get confirmed. And he went on to say that he thought there were members of this committee who couldn't answer the question Senator Kennedy asked as well. I hope and pray that's not the case. I'm confident that on the Republican side of the aisle, the members of this committee know what Article 2 is. Are there any members of this committee who care to volunteer on the Democrat side of the aisle that you don't know what Article 2 is? If you didn't, you or I or anyone who didn't know what Article 2 was would not be qualified to serve on this committee.
And that's exactly why nobody put their hand up. And despite the fact he's just told them exactly what Article 2 of the Constitution is, which means they now know.
And I will say, I want to encourage the Democrats on the committee to follow Chairman Durbin's lead. Chairman Durbin, during the Trump administration, explained on a nominee, he said, he invoked what he called the Senator John Kennedy test. And Chairman Durbin said, quote, I think it's a legitimate test to be applied to all those who want to be trial judges. And I hope others on both sides of the table will join me in saying it's not enough to aspire. You have to bring to this aspiration some practical experience and knowledge that suggests you can meet the standard required.
Which is the definition of meritocracy. And that requires meritocracy hierarchical structures to be in place. which is not the society that these people currently want. I'm wondering whether that's going to change, though. I mean, there's so much going on in society at the moment. We're getting rid of a load of the DEI hires. There's a load of businesses that are basically turning around and going, yep, we're not woke. We don't want to go broke. We are going to advertise to those toxic men, because those toxic men are the ones that buy this product. Budweiser has gone from first place in the amount of beer sold in America to third place, and it's still going down. And this is a year later. It's still going on. It's going down and down and down. Somehow its sister drink, Michelob, is still in second place. I think that's because people don't realize that that's also Anheuser-Busch. But there's a change that's going on. The Overton's window seems to be moving. There's a lot less cancel culture going on. There are a lot more things that are acceptable to be said across social media. There are a lot more people that are pushing back against the affirmative action of positive discrimination in place for certain people. Anyway, that was Ted Cruz on that one. That probably went on a little bit too long, really. I do like this one a bit more, though.
Good morning, Secretary Mayorkas.
Good morning.
Is there
Secretary Mayorkas is going to be rammed up his backside with a red hot poker. Let's put the playback speed on here. This is absolutely fantastic.
Is there a crisis at our southern border?
Senator, there is a very significant...
That's a yes or no question.
There's a very significant...
Is there a crisis?
Senator, there's a very significant challenge.
I think your microphone is not on.
There is a very significant challenge that we are facing.
Yes or no, is there a crisis?
I believe I've addressed that question.
So you're refusing to answer?
Senator, there is a very significant challenge. And
will you answer if there's a crisis?
Therefore, we are dedicating the resources.
Okay, so you're refusing to answer. Well, Secretary Mayorkas, I'll tell you someone who is willing to answer, which is your and President Biden's chief of the Border Patrol in a sworn deposition in July of 2022 when asked, would you agree, Chief Ortiz, that the southern border is currently in crisis? Answer, yes. Notice none of those wiggle words, none of that equivocation. One word, one syllable, yes. Are you willing to speak with the same clarity as Chief Ortiz? Is there a crisis at our southern border, yes or no?
Senator, I'm very proud to work alongside.
So you refuse to answer. Let me ask you the next question. Has the crisis at our southern border...
So you refuse to answer. Okay, let's move on then. Very, very cutting, exceptionally cutting. And the whole of this is exactly just like that.
Made Americans less safe, yes or no?
Senator, we are dedicated to the safety.
Has the crisis made Americans less safe? I don't want a discourse. It's a yes or no question.
Senator, we have a challenge of...
You refuse to answer the question. Mr. Secretary, let me show you how someone doing his job answers a question in a straightforward manner. Chief Ortiz, is the crisis that is currently ongoing at the southern border making the border less safe for Americans and aliens alike? Answer, yes. One word, one syllable, 3 letters. That's how someone answers a question and does their job. You're being a politician misleading the American people. Let me give you a chance again. Will you show the same integrity Chief Ortiz shows? Is the crisis at the southern border making Americans less safe? Yes or no?
I wish he'd just left that question hanging, as if it was actually a question rather than rhetorical. Will you show the same level of whatever word he used that Chief Ortiz showed? I wish he'd actually left it as a proper question to see what kind of answer was going to come out of Mayorkas. Because I think it would have been some more bullshit rather than a yes or no. It's a very difficult question to answer. It's a philosophical question that I think I would need to consider on certain left and right sides, and we've got to look at the moral side of it, and we've got to look at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy to have a look at all the different arguments. It's a yes or no question.
Senator, we have 260,000.
You refuse to answer the question.
It's a yes or no question. How does somebody hold a straight face and deliver responses in this way? I have no idea. I have no idea how he does it.
Let's move on.
And security of the
Next
American
question, Mr. Mayorkas. Has the crisis made aliens less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we are seeking.
So you won't answer that question either.
If you,
It's a yes or no. Has it made aliens less safe?
Senator, smugglers are exploiting.
Has the crisis made aliens less safe? Are you willing to answer it?
Senator, the smuggling organizations.
Okay, you're filibustering again. Let me ask you this question. How many migrants have died under President Biden?
Senator, your phrasing of the question is actually quite misleading.
How many
Your phrasing of the question is misleading. It's a very, very simple and direct question that has been phrased in a very particular way. How many migrants have died crossing the border? How can that be a misleading, misphrased question? It's not the question that he wants. So he says it's misphrased or misleading or whatever the hell he says.
Migrants died in 2022.
At our approaching our southern border?
Yes.
Precisely why we are seeking to exclude the smuggling.
Do you know the answer? Do you know how many died?
I do not.
You do not. Of course you don't. I know how many died. 853.
That is
853. And by the way, here are the numbers that have died every year. You go back to 1998, you see it's consistently between 300 and 400, 300, 400, 300, 400. Suddenly, 2021, what happens? You get in office, and that red line are dead bodies. I've been on the Rio Grande, and I've seen dead bodies floating there who've drowned because of your refusal to do your job. You don't even know how many have died. What do you say to the Texas farmers and ranchers who find pregnant ladies dead on the...
Introducing Twist and Fit Rollerblade.
Dead bodies, dead bodies, dead bodies. But they're going to fight to the last Ukrainian or the last Mexican, whichever one you want it to be. For their ideology, they will make sure that the dead bodies must rack up. But it's not their fault. It's not their problem. The dead bodies racking up is the problem of the previous people, not the ability to save these people from becoming unalive.
Who find toddlers dead on their property. What do you say to them?
I say that is why precisely we are taking it to the smuggling organization.
But you are not. That is simply not true.
Number two, it is
let me read from the Wall Street.
So the philosophical argument of taking it to the smugglers is that you're not countering the issue at all. There will still be people attempting to get across the Rio Grande, illegally migrating. What you're going to do is focus on the smugglers, which is exactly what the UK tried to do with the people coming across on the boats. You're not actually countering the issue itself, which is stop the people from leaving in the first place from the other country. Because that's what you need to do. Because anybody that tries to move illegally across is going to be in danger, whether it is on a boat in the Channel from France to the UK, or it is trying to get across the Rio Grande in whatever way they try to do it. You need to stop them from even attempting the crossing.
Journal. The Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago ran an article entitled, "It's like a graveyard. Record numbers of migrants are dying at the border." The story begins with this chilling line, quote, Eagle Pass, Texas. Local officials keep a refrigerated truck to hold the bodies of migrants who drown in the currents of the Rio Grande while trying to cross the border into the U.S. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record. Let me ask you a different question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under the Biden administration?
Senator, this is precisely why we instituted...
I don't want a lecture. It's a question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under your administration?
Senator, this is exactly why on January 5th, we announced the parole
do you know
program.
how many? Do you know how many children have been...
A how many question is asking for a number or I don't know, or here's an approximation. I can see Ted Cruz here is in some ways getting frustrated, but he's holding himself back very, very well. And he's making it exceptionally clear what an asshole Mayorkas is.
Sexually assaulted.
This is why we.
Okay, you're going to refuse to answer that question as well. Let's move on. It's obvious you've been instructed to stonewall, so I'm not going to let you. You don't get to stonewall and filibuster. Now, one of my Democratic colleagues before said the Democrat talking point, quote, this problem didn't start under Biden. Look, I get if you're a partisan spinner, you got to figure out something to say about the absolute catastrophe that has played out under the Biden administration. True or false, Secretary Mayorkas, 2020 was the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. Is that true or false?
It is certainly the lowest level of immigration in many, many years. And what was it in 2020? What was it, Senator, in 2020 that impacted the entire world, including the United States?
Okay, so your testimony is the reason we had the lowest rate was COVID. It had nothing to do with building the wall, nothing to do with ending catch and release, nothing to do with remain in Mexico. With all respect, Mr. Secretary, that answer is laughable. And in fact, if you look at illegal immigration, let's look at CBP encounters. You can see 500,000, 500,000, it drops to the lowest level, and boom, what happens? You show up. And that red line is you. That red line is Joe Biden. And you're claiming nothing happened. Oh, gosh, this was here before us. No, you made the decision to allow this to happen. Let me ask you, we now have over 5.5.
So it jumped up from 500,000 in 2018 to 1 million in 2019. And I'm assuming that's because everybody knew that there was a wall going up. And people were rushing to get across before the wall got up because they knew that it would be very, very difficult to get across. Then in 2020, the wall has gone up. Most of the wall has gone up. And it goes down to its lowest levels. And then the Biden administration comes in. And that is a massive, massive, massive jump for each year. So within 2 years, it's gone up 5 or 6 times to 2.5 million. Did they actually rip the wall down? I'm assuming that Donald Trump actually did put something up. But it's whatever, whichever way you want to look at it, it's a massive, massive growth. However, anybody might want to argue about the 2019 number. We had exactly the same here in the UK. The Tory government started getting its Rwanda policy in place, and suddenly a lot of our illegal immigrants that were waiting to be deported to Rwanda, they travelled over to Northern Ireland because Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, and then they just wandered by foot or by bus or by train into the Republic of Ireland and then started claiming there. Now, the Republic of Ireland was really, really pissed off about this because they found out all of these people had come in via Northern Ireland from the United Kingdom, and they desperately wanted to get away from Britain because of the fear of being sent to Rwanda, of which they would never come back from there. So they went back to a safe country, Ireland, part of the European Union. The same European Union that they had fled from when they risked their lives coming over on a very dodgy boat over the Channel from France. So they ended up back in the EU in Ireland. France is keeping its voice very, very quiet on this issue because France certainly doesn't want these refugees back. But what I do find interesting is what's happened in the last week on the Polish border. So Poland is receiving migrants trying to get into it and claiming refugee status and asylum from Belarus. They are throwing those migrants back. And apparently that's legal So I don't understand why we're not just throwing these migrants that arrive at our shores back on a boat to go back to France straight away. If it's legal in the EU to do that to a third country, it must be legal for the UK, if they put the same laws in place that the EU has, to do exactly the same to the EU. I don't understand. I don't get it. Chuck them back. Send them back. They'll eventually run out of money because they'll have none left to give to the smuggling gangs because they charge an absolute arm and a leg. Or your life in the end if you die on one of these boats. So your chances of getting on a boat again are very, very slim. Because if you had, see, I don't get it. If they've got that amount of money, why don't they just go and get themselves a visa and get here to the UK? The other bit is they make them, or they advise them to throw away their passports on the way so that they've got no documentation. Which to me is as soon as somebody arrives, as long as they're not a child, as soon as somebody arrives at UK's border, if they have zero documents, they get sent either back to France or to Rwanda. Boom. But the Labour Party has got rid of the Rwanda stuff. And the Labour Party is going to focus on the Mayorkas idea. We're going to focus on the smuggling gangs.
5 million people who've entered this country illegally under Joe Biden. How many murderers have you released into America?
Senator, I'm not aware of any murderer whom we've.
So you don't know?
Senator, let me say something.
Do you know?
If you take a look at.
No, you don't get to give a speech. Do you know how many murderers you've released?
I'm just trying to answer your question.
How many rapists
Senator.
have you released?
Senator, I'm trying to answer your question.
You can answer, I know or I don't know.
Senator, any individual who poses a public safety threat.
How many child molesters have you released?
And removed into the United States, from the United States.
Oh, so your testimony under oath, subject to perjury, is that you have not released any murderers, rapists, or child molesters among the 5.5 million. Is that your testimony?
Mr. Chairman, may I have the opportunity?
No, you may not. You may answer my question.
I love that. Mayorkas gets so upset that he tries to go past Ted Cruz and ask the chairman a direct question. May I? And Ted Cruz basically says, get stuffed. Answer my questions. I am the one answering the questions. You don't go to somebody else. You answer my questions. Absolutely hilarious.
You're not.
Is that your testimony? Yes or no?
Senator, you're not allowing me to answer your question.
I am allowing you to answer. I'm not allowing you to filibuster.
If you take a look at the pace of immigration in 2018 to 2019.
You're refusing to answer. Let's move on. Let's move on to gotaways. Gotaways are the people that get away that you know about. Now, what happened under your administration? Gotaways consistently down at this low line. Boom, you get in. And they go from below 180,000 to 600,000. Now, I'll tell you this about a gotaway. You don't know. Among those 600,000 a year, you have no idea how many are murderers, correct?
That is precisely why the number of
Correct? Do you know how many of those are murderers?
That is precisely
So you refuse to answer the question. You know how many are rapists? Do you know how many are rapists? This is a question. You're a lawyer. You know how to answer questions. Of the 600,000, do you know how many of them were rapists?
Senator, this is why
the answer is no. Let me ask you this. Do you know how many of them are terrorists? And I don't want to, Senator, here's my lecture on this. Do you know how many of the 600,000 gotaways were terrorists? Yes.
It's not that he won't let him talk, Housey. It's that he's been asked a very specific question. He's not answering the actual question. And one answer to all of these questions is, I don't know. So I'm quite impressed with what Ted Cruz is doing here. Because if Mayorkas actually answered it, he might get the chance to be able to give a rationale to it once he'd actually answered. But he never tries to answer. He does filibuster.
Yes or no?
Senator, we are focused on the.
You refuse to answer that as well. What's the result of massive gotaways? Well, one of the results is drug overdoses. And we now have last year over 100,000 overdoses.
He's not using dirty debate tactics, and he's not being a bully. He is asking very straight questions, just like anybody would do in a court of law They're very straight questions, and Mayorkas, the witness, is certainly not answering the very straight questions. There's a reason for asking very straight questions. It's because you want to know what the answer is from that person's perspective. And they are supposed to be answering truthfully, honestly, 100%. But they're very straight questions. And I'm not surprised Ted Cruz is getting more and more and more pissed off, for want of a better term, because he's not had one answer. Not one answer has attempted to answer his question. The guy is attempting to filibuster.
Who died, the majority from Chinese fentanyl streaming across the border. Now, you told Senator Cornyn you care, but look what has happened under your policy. When you open up the border to the worst illegal immigration in our nation's history, people die. You claim you care. Mr. Secretary, that is a lie. You know, some months ago, Karine Jean-Pierre stood up at a White House briefing and said, people are not just walking across the border. Was she telling the truth?
Senator, you are
Was she telling the
so
truth?
profoundly disrespecting.
Was she telling
my
the truth?
22 years
Okay,
of government
you
service.
get to answer questions. You don't
Senator,
get to give speeches.
Senator, I served as a federal prosecutor.
All right, you're
for 12
refusing
years.
to answer. If you look at, she was lying, and she was not lying on her own. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. Now, the photograph of people walking. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. This is a photograph from just one day along the Rio Grande of hundreds of thousands of people walking across the border. You have allowed this to happen. The photograph that was before, what are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into?
Now, it's that bit I actually think Ted Cruz may well be very wrong here, because those leg irons are very easy for somebody to just take off. The idea that this person still owes this smuggling gang this amount of money, and yet if that person gets into America, gets on one of these buses in Texas and flies off to, I don't know, Nevada or California or wherever they go, New York, the smuggling gangs don't know where they've gone, don't know who they are. So that's the bit where I think Ted Cruz is absolutely wrong. He's trying to introduce evidence where it looks a bit dodgy.
The sex slavery under your administration.
Senator, we are taking it to the cartels.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped.
See, what would be interesting is if Mayorkas had actually says, I don't know those numbers. And then that would force Ted Cruz to actually say what the numbers were. And then there'd be all the fact-checking organizations determining whether the numbers that Ted Cruz had were actually any good or not. And that's where I think he's possibly missed a trick here, Mr. Mayorkas, because he has just tried to filibuster instead of giving himself the opportunity to throw it back. One of the best answers to questions is, I don't know. Help me out here. What are those numbers? And where do you get those numbers from? And if Ted Cruz then refuses to answer, you've then got a case. So Mayorkas has dug himself a very, very, very big hole throughout the whole of this. by refusing to answer questions directly, which is the standard attempt of a politician. And it's probably exactly what Ted Cruz would try to do if he was in the other position and being the witness.
To follow political orders. This is a crisis. It's a disgrace. And you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for being here. Let me start with what I hope is a simple question. Do we need to have more or fewer people coming to our southern border?
Senator, we are working on diminishing the number of people whom we encounter at our southern border because of the challenge it presents. We're trying to build lawful, safe, and orderly pathways to accomplish that.
Okay, fewer. So we need to have fewer, which means we need to roll back incentives to come. So,
you see, this Senator Hawley has asked a very straight question, and he had to convert the answer, which Mayorkas could have just given it. He had to convert it to answer the question. Okay, so fewer. Mayorkas could have just said that because it's true. They are trying to reduce the number of people coming to the border and crossing the border, which in answer to the question is fewer. Concise and precise is always better. I don't know why this guy thinks that he needs to talk, because he just gets himself in trouble.
I would have thought that would have been the answer. Let's talk about what you're doing, though. In January of this year, you rolled out a new phone app called CBP One, an app for a cell phone. I've got a picture of it behind me here. This phone app allows, and I'm going to quote from your own fact sheet, it allows, and I quote, non-citizens without appropriate documents for admission to schedule an appointment to come to the border. They can now go on their phone and schedule a time to come to the border and then be admitted. And you identified.
You can't, Nerdy. But you can extend the number of brain cells that regenerate by listening to me on repeat all night long.
7 separate border points of entry where they could come. 5 of them in Texas, 2 of them in California, 1 in Arizona. It's like a concierge service for illegal immigrants. My question is, you didn't think the border crisis was bad enough that now we're going to have an app that allows illegals to schedule their appointments and come and be admitted to this country?
Senator, you're mischaracterizing the use of the application. Let me explain it to you. We are currently enforcing the public health order of Title 42, and I know you're very familiar with it. There is a process for individuals who claim an exception to the Title 42 expulsion authority because of an acute medical condition.
Well, let's talk about this app.
If I may finish, an urgent humanitarian reason. So instead of them coming in between the ports,
it's true. Very scary.
Of entry to claim that urgent medical condition, that extraordinarily acute humanitarian cause, we allow a limited number to arrive at our ports of entry and seek the emergency relief that they need.
Schedule. You allow them. Let's be particular about what you do.
I should say that the CBP One app
You can't.
was not
What?
unveiled.
I don't understand. Listen, what? You got something to say? Say it. Spit it out. Come on. I'm trying to. Why are you so upset?
For the first time on January 5th of this year.
Oh no, but you changed it. You made it available on January 5th to the illegals themselves.
That's just because you're so emotional, Sandy. I can't blame you for it. It's just a feminine trait.
You don't have to be a lawyer to use it. You don't have to be a member of a non-governmental organization. Anybody can download the app and use it on their phone. And for the first time, you allow them to schedule appointments. Now, let's talk about what actually happens when they come to the border. It's interesting. You characterized this when you rolled it out as an application for applying for asylum. But nowhere on the app do you actually require the illegal migrants to apply for asylum or to claim asylum or anything about asylum. And in fact, when they then get to the border, you don't ask them questions. You don't do interviews. You just release them. Here's the Texas Monthly, not a notable conservative outlet, who reports, and I quote, "At no point does the app ask..."
Man, it'll go on for hours. It'll go on for hours. Go do it.
Users, are you seeking asylum? Those arriving for the CBP One appointments are given no interviews, asked no questions, about vulnerabilities that they may or may not have listed in the app or about why they're coming to the United States. They're simply released into the country, end quote. So rather than building a wall, Mr. Secretary, you have built Ticketmaster for illegal immigrants.
You are, Senator, you are.
That's a great line. You have built Ticketmaster for illegal immigrants. That's brilliant.
Conflating programs. Let me explain
Well,
to
just
you.
respond to this. Is it true that they are given no interviews, asked no questions, and simply released into the country?
Let me explain to you what we announced on January 5th.
No, I want you to explain to me what's happening. I know what you announced. I read it to you.
So I will explain to you what is happening.
Are they given interviews? Let's start with that. Are they given interviews?
We were previously experiencing.
That's starting to sound like a no. Well, let's just hone in here. Mr. Secretary, my time is very limited. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to drive to some clarity here.
This is the other point. Their time is limited. They only get a certain amount of time to ask certain questions, and they're trying to get answers to those questions. Now, Ted Cruz didn't get any answers, and Senator Hawley here is not getting the answers that he needs to be able to determine what the hell is going on. This is just like a public accounts committee or a select committee at the British Parliament. You're supposed to be there to get answers to certain stuff so that you can determine what the final element is. Now, of course, there will be Democratic senators there who are able to ask. So these are the Republican ones. Just like in the UK, you've got people from the other party that are asking the hard questions. And this is merely showing the hard questions. And this guy is filibustering. He is trying to take up their time. He is trying to prevent them from asking questions. And he is trying his best not to tell people the truth about what is actually going on. And these people are trying to determine what that truth is. There are then further opportunities of people who are from the other side, the Democrat side, and from the independents who are on this committee, who would then be able to clarify other aspects or counter the questions that were asked by the Republicans here. But he's not even answering, which is where the problem is.
The Texas Monthly has reported that once illegal immigrants go on their phone and reserve their time to come to the border, once they use your concierge service that you've created for them, when they come, they are given no interviews. They are asked no questions about any vulnerabilities. They are simply released into the country. Is that happening?
Senator, you are.
It's not following the rules of debate. That's because it's not a debate. This is like a court of law. The people asking the questions are the equivalent of the lawyers, and this guy on screen is the equivalent of a witness. They are trying to get to the bottom based on the truthfulness of the questions that they are asking and the truthfulness of the truthfulness of the answers they are receiving to the questions they are asking, but they are not getting truthful answers. They are getting filibustering. They are getting political answers which would never answer the question. And they know that they're not going to get an answer to the question because they're politicians themselves, which is why this happens in this way, which I find brilliant because the British method is a bit weak in comparison.
Mistaken. And if I may explain.
Are they given interviews?
If I may explain, individuals who seek parole under our January 5th program for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans are screened and vetted before they arrive at our border.
Wait a minute.
Not Mexicans. You did hear that. Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelans, and something else. But it did not mention Mexicans.
No, they go on the phone and they just reserve a time, and then they show up and they're given nothing. Listen to this. Even immigration advocates are amazed about this. Here, also from the Texas Monthly. Here's one immigration advocate whose first name is Orta. She says, that's the crazy part. Nothing in this new program requires you to actually seek asylum. Somehow, we've decided to punish those who arrive at the border without the app, who may be seeking it.
This is about accountability, Halsey. It's about accountability of public servants to the Senate, the Congress, the House of Representatives, whoever it is that's asking these things. This is how your government is set up. to ask questions of people who are in positions of power that are paid for by the state. Are they doing a good job? People need to get to the bottom of why things are happening and what exactly is happening. So there are going to be always some really tough questions being asked of people in positions of power. And Mayorkas is one of these people that is definitely in a position of power, but he's not actually being a public servant. He is being a politician or attempting to be. And this is why they're asking him very, very straight questions. This is not a debate. It's not a debating society. It's not about you've got a certain amount of time to answer the question, because people would just filibuster and not answer the question, run out of their time, and these people wouldn't have had the chance to answer a second question or ask a second question. That's why the congressmen here are doing it in this way. It has to be done that way.
Asylum, but we just let in anybody who may or may not have any particular reason to seek asylum, so long as they've made an appointment on your Ticketmaster app. This seems crazy to me.
Senator, it's a complete mischaracterization of the program that we announced and are implementing.
So how many people have used the app then?
That you are referring to. So if I can explain.
How many people have used the app?
So we had a significant surge of Cubans.
How many people have used the app?
Nicaraguans and Venezuelans.
Mr. Secretary, you're here to answer my questions. How many people have used the app?
Tens of thousands have sought to make an appointment at the port of entry under our parole program.
Okay, good. How many have been admitted without an interview at the border?
You are, again, inserting a fact that does not belong in your question. So
you're inserting a fact that does not belong in your question. You are asking me a question that I do not want to answer. I would like you to ask me a question that I would be happy to answer. Did you use white, green, or pink toilet roll when you wiped your arse this morning? Oh, it was pink. It was pink. And it was one of those sort of wettish ones as well. It was really, really good.
If I can, I will get you the precise.
I'm reading to you from public reports about how your own app works. You're just blanket denying. Actually, you're not quite denying it. You're saying that maybe we don't understand. Apparently, I don't understand. Texas Monthly doesn't understand. Immigration advocates don't understand. You're the only one who understands, yet you won't answer my question. How much did this cost to develop, by the way?
Senator, I don't have the cost, but let me share with you a critical
Well, will
fact.
you get it for us?
Let me share.
It's not manipulation, Housey. It's the beauty of politics. It's the beauty of accountability. It's the beauty of government employs people to be damn good at their job and to be able to justify what they did and how they used information to be able to produce objective rationales for what they do and what they plan to do. And this guy doesn't have any. This guy is the type of person that if I was his boss, I'd sack the motherfucker.
With you a critical
Will you
fact.
get us the cost of what to develop this app?
Happily.
Did you contract with a tech firm to develop it?
Senator, we have seen a approximately.
Did you contract with a tech firm to develop it?
We have seen an approximately
for heaven's sake.
95% decrease.
Did you contract with a tech firm to develop it? Yes or no?
Senator, this was led by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, our technical experts within the agency, and I certainly will get an answer to your question whether outside consultants were utilized
you don't
in the
know.
development process.
You don't know.
May I explain to you, since you have a misunderstanding of the program, what it is and the impact, the positive impact it has had on encounters of these four populations in between.
I just want to know why it is that you are allowing people to come to this border to make appointments, to not be interviewed, and then how many have just been released? Is it true, by the way, as the Texas Monthly report?
You see, this is the difference between men and women, you see. These are men that are asking the questions of a man who doesn't want to answer the questions. These are the types of questions that men ask and other men try to avoid answering because they know that giving the true answer to the actual question could land them in a bit of bother in terms of keeping their job if they actually answered it truthfully, because it would show that they're actually incompetent and should never have been given the job in the first place. Whereas women start having a meta conversation about how the question is asked, and you're not letting him answer. And that's the difference between men and women. Men don't care about the meta aspects of the question being asked. And it was asked in a nasty way, so I got all upset about it and I gave you shit in my answer. I don't care about the way that you answer it either. I care about the content of what you say. And that's a big difference between men and women. Except there's a lot of men that don't have any of those values anymore because they've been brought up by single women and they don't have any men in their lives to actually learn that that is the way that men are. They're going to have problems in their lives. A bit like that guy at the hotel who demanded that the people wear an N95 mask when serving him, and so they told him he had 1 hour to get out of their fucking hotel. Go on, fuck off somewhere else. And he spent a TikTok set of however long it was crying about not knowing what he's going to do because they're now kicking me out of my hotel and I don't know what to do and I don't have any money because I've got skin. What the fuck he was talking about, I have no idea. I don't have a clue what he was talking about. But we don't do meta conversations. That is the point about debating. Forget about how somebody is asking something of you or treating you. Shut up, dog. You answer the questions and you ask your own questions back in just as scathing a manner.
That they're simply released into the country on official parole. And get this, they're not given, according to their reporting, any kind of follow-up. Their court dates are in immigration courts, Texas Monthly reports, not even necessarily asylum trials. They're often general deportation hearings where defendants can make arguments for remaining in the country. Is that true?
That is a completely mistaken understanding of how the immigration process works. That language is completely confusing and erroneous.
Well, it is confusing. What's confusing is why anybody would think that an app like this to allow illegal immigrants to literally reserve a time to come to the border and then be ushered in without an interview, without...
Dirty tactics! Dirty tactics! It's not really fair!
That's racist.
I need an adult! I need an adult!
Rescue attempt is a go.
It's a power I was born with. I call it my white sight.
Percentage increase of Chinese nationals who crossed the border this year, Mr. Secretary. Let's just focus on maybe the Rio Grande Valley side.
The number of Chinese nationals encountered at our southern border has increased significantly.
Do you know how much?
Over the past, I don't have the precise.
I do. It's 900% just in the Rio Grande.
Everything to do with psychology of this sort of stuff is produced by, in general, feminine people. And that's why you're reading this sort of stuff and studying it and looking at it solely from a single perspective. The audience is not being manipulated. The audience has the chance to also look at the questions that will be asked from the people of the other side and therefore pull it all together. Now, if the audience chooses not to do that, that's their choice. I am solely looking at this as entertainment. I know that there is another side to this. And it will also turn around next year when Donald Trump gets in. And these people may be the ones that are asking softball questions to certain people who are delivering whatever it is they're supposed to be delivering. And it'll be the Democrats that are asking the hard-hitting, tough questions, which is exactly what journalists do. But therapy, psychology, counseling, why do you think these areas are completely over employing women to actually do this stuff as the practitioners, and they focus most of their therapy towards women because it works for women. Frankly, it doesn't work for most men. That's where a lot of the issues are. And I'm just saying you got a lot of unconscious bias there, I'm afraid.
And a Valley sector. Are any of these people who came in this bus, these Chinese nationals, members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, if an individual presents a national security or public safety threat, we detain them during the pendency.
But that's not what I asked. I asked if they're members of the CCP.
During the pendency of their removal proceedings.
Are any of these individuals members of the CCP?
So
I think there's about 70 who came on this bus.
If indeed they are determined to be a national security threat or a threat to public safety, we detain them pending their removal proceedings.
So were any of these individuals detained, or were they released into the?
That's right,
I don't have awareness of that particular group of individuals.
And so you don't know if any of them were members of the CCP. Or actually, you do know, you just won't say.
I don't know from the photograph, Senator, to whom.
But surely you know about the folks who you've read this report. You're the Secretary of Homeland Security. You're aware of these individuals. Were any of them members of the Chinese Communist Party coming into this country?
That's right, Sandy.
Senator, you're providing me with a group of individuals without names, identities, or.
So you're not familiar with this incident that was widely reported on at the southern border? Don't you think it's strange that we have busloads of Chinese nationals coming across our southern border? I'm asking you, from a hostile country, I'm asking you if they're members of the Chinese Communist Party, and you don't know. Apparently, you won't say.
We are very focused on all
There, was that so hard? Freaking drama queen.
things with respect to the People's Republic of
But you
China.
don't know any of the details. I plead exhaustion, Mr. Secretary. You have exhausted me. You have exhausted this panel. You have exhausted the patience of the American people. You should resign.
Senator Kennedy.
You should resign. I love it. You have exhausted us. You should resign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome.
Now, this is Senator Kennedy, who we saw earlier on, who had the very, very deep breath as life drained from him when he was talking to whoever it was he was talking to.
Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Secretary, do you agree with the president that we should ban the private ownership of assault weapons in America?
Senator, I do.
What is an assault weapon?
It is, for example, an AK-47.
Can you give me a definition other than just pointing to a specific weapon? Would there be other weapons besides an AK-47?
What is a woman? What is a man? Don't use woman. Don't use man. Don't just point at somebody that you say they are this thing. Actually define it.
7 you would ban?
There very well are. And I remember when I was a federal prosecutor in the Central District of California from September 25th, 1989 to, I believe it was April 2000.
Filibustering. How long does he want to take up by telling us, when I did this job and I believe it was between this time and this other time, and oh yeah, and the sandwiches we used to eat at lunch, they were absolutely fantastic. They were about 3 inches thick. They were full of lettuce and tomatoes, and they had this beautiful pastrami right through the middle, and that was about 3/4 of an inch worth. And this mustard that was on top of it, it was the most amazing stuff. But unfortunately, the place that made it burnt down during the Vietnam War. And it's not there anymore, and I've never tasted it before. Oh, is that your time up? Oh dear. Next senator, please.
And
I thank you for your service, but if you could answer my question.
The vast majority of law enforcement officers, leaders with whom I worked were greatly in support of the assault weapons ban.
Mr. Chairman, you know why we get so frustrated with you? Because you won't give straight answers.
I think I just...
Do you know why we get so frustrated with you? Because you won't give us straight answers. He just let him talk, and he didn't give a straight answer. And they still don't have an answer. They still do not know what the definition of an assault rifle is. They do not have it. He let the guy answer, and they still don't know what the answer is, because the guy was not going to give them an answer, and they knew that. So if you're going to start by filibustering, you might as well cut them off straight away clarify that they're not going to actually answer the question, and move on to the next question with evidence that they weren't going to answer it. Senator Kennedy here has actually proven it.
Just did. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Do you have a definition of an assault weapon?
I am confident there's a technical definition of what is an assault weapon, and it was assuredly used in the context of the statute that previously existed banning assault weapons.
So he says, I'm sure there is a definition of one, but he hasn't given the definition, and he clearly does not know what that definition is. So why didn't he just say that at the beginning?
Mr. Secretary, our southern border is not secure, is it?
Senator, I have spoken about this. I believe I've addressed this earlier in the hearing.
Why don't you address it again?
I have spoken about this. I believe I have addressed this earlier in the hearing. Actually, we heard that he didn't address it. But that is another 2 sentences worth of using up time instead of answering the question. This is where these people need to have their feet held to the fire. They need to be stopped from filibustering, and they need to answer the question.
Again,
of course. Let me share with you a few things. Number one, when I speak of the security of the border, I'm speaking of maximizing the resources we have to deliver the most effective results.
So
let me assure you that we are doing
secure
so.
because we're trying to secure it. Are we succeeding?
Senator, we are so focused on the security of our southern border. We are doing so much with respect
but you're not
to
succeeding.
We're so focused. We're doing so much, but you're not succeeding.
Surge of personnel.
How you're not succeeding?
Oh, Senator, let me share with you that the challenge of migration that we are experiencing at our southern border is not exclusive.
It's because it's really difficult. I'm really sorry, Senator. It's really difficult, but we're trying. We're trying our hardest. We're doing the best that we can. We've got 70,000 DEI hires. We've got all of these children coming in to show us what an assault rifle is because they saw one at school, and we're doing our very, 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 very best.
To the United States. It is something that is gripping the entire hemisphere.
But my job is to worry about the United States.
As is mine. As is mine.
And here's my question. Let me try to rephrase it. And I really do wish, I understand the position you're in.
Let me rephrase the question. Have you got any fucking idea what it takes to do your job? Or are you just getting paid shitloads of money to go to fundraising fat bastard meals every day?
But you really should try to do a better job of answering the questions. Under the Biden administration, we have the most encounters. We have had the most encounters with people attempting to come into our country illegally.
I'm sorry, Sandy, but for copyright purposes, for free use purposes, I have to interrupt. So there is most of the title up at the top here. You could just type that into the sort of chat bar up at the top into YouTube, and you could go and watch this without any interruptions whatsoever.
In the history of ever. Under the Biden administration, we have had the most people entering our country illegally in the history of ever. Under the Biden administration, we have had the most gotaways at our southern border in the history of ever.
I've never heard the term "in the history of ever" before. I might have to start using that.
Under the Biden administration, we have had the most number of people entering our country under a claim of asylum, having that claim turned down and still not being deported in the history of ever.
In the history of ever.
And under the Biden administration, we've had the most fentanyl coming into our country in the history of ever.
In the
How
history
can you
of ever.
possibly say the southern border is secure?
You know
I understand your answer that you're trying, but I'm not asking about your efforts. I'm asking about the results.
That's really funny. That's really funny for you, Sandy. I don't waste time listening to dishonest liars, lol. Only honest liars. That's fucking brilliant. I love that. I love it. Well, that's really good.
So let's talk about the results then, Senator. Do you know that last year we expelled and removed approximately 1.4 million people from the southern border? I believe that's the most ever. Do you realize that we are focused on enforcing our laws to achieve the security of the southern border?
I know you're focused, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Secretary, but you're not succeeding.
Senator,
and when you come testify to us, you talk about how you're trying really hard. And I don't have any way to disprove that. I accept that statement in good faith. But the numbers belie that.
If I can, Senator,
I'm doing my best. I'm really, really, really doing my best. I'm trying so hard. It keeps me up at night, all night long. But you're not very good, are you? I'm trying my best. I'm doing my best. I can't help it, but I'm doing my best. But you're not very good, are you? Sack the motherfucker.
Let me give you an example of a solution that we have delivered that for some reason is being contested. Because it's caused a 95.
I give you 30 seconds, okay?
It's caused a 95.
Don't filibuster me. You've been doing that all day. I'm just trying to.
I'm just trying to communicate. It has led to a approximately 95% drop in the number of.
I'm just trying to communicate, but you're not succeeding.
Encounters in between the ports of entry at our southern border of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans on January 5th. And why would that be opposed when it is delivering precisely?
Mr. Secretary, will you please just shut the fuck up?
The result that you seek.
Did you just parachute in from another planet, Mr. Secretary? Because you're the only person in the Milky Way who believes that we're not having massive illegal immigration into America.
Senator, you're putting words into my mouth.
No.
Can you shut the fuck up?
Shut the fuck up. You're a fucking cunt. Shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up.
You're a stupid cunt. Suck my dick.
I'm accurately describing the situation.
There is no question. There is no question that we have a very serious challenge at our southern border.
Okay.
It is a challenge.
We can agree on that. Let me ask you another question. Why don't you just declare a new policy that other than children, if you present at the southern border, you claim refugee status, you claim political asylum, and you haven't claimed refugee status and political asylum at the first safe country, then you can't come in.
Senator, so first of all, when one presents at the border, it's an asylum claim, not a refugee.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you just unilaterally declare that a safe third country policy? It would work. You can't come into America. If you're coming from Venezuela and you come through Mexico, if you didn't claim asylum in Mexico, you can't come here. You have to leave. Why don't you just do that?
Well, Senator, let me give you an example with respect to Mexico. A safe third country agreement. Let's hypothetically assume.
You don't have to have an agreement with Mexico.
Yes, you do.
No, you don't.
I believe you do, Senator.
No, you don't. Other countries don't do it. Just adopt a policy that says, except for children, because you don't want to send children back by themselves. Just adopt a new policy that if you didn't seek asylum in the first safe third country, you can't come in, period.
Senator, are you aware of the notice of proposal?
Right. So Mallorca said, refugee is not the same as asylum seeker, which is the typical pedant type of thing to say. That I'm very fond of. So I decided to look up, because I didn't know the difference between the two. So I'm just looking at Google right now. Difference between asylum versus refugee. An asylum seeker is someone who is also seeking international protection from dangers in their home country, but whose claim for refugee status hasn't been determined legally. Asylum seekers must apply for protection in the country of destination, meaning they must arrive at or cross a border in order to apply. So who is a refugee? A refugee is someone who has been forced to flee their home because of war, violence, or persecution, often without warning. They're unable to return home unless and until conditions in their native lands are safe for them again. An official entity such as a government or the United Nations Refugee Agency determines whether a person seeking international protection meets the definition of a refugee based on well-founded fear. So an asylum seeker is someone who is also seeking international protection from dangers in their home country, but whose claim for refugee status hasn't been determined legally. Hasn't been determined legally. I don't know what that means. Haven't they tried to determine it, or has somebody said no? Or have they asked for refugee status and somebody just hasn't had the chance to determine it yet? So, asylum seekers must apply for protection in the country of destination, meaning they must arrive at or cross a border in order to apply. Then they must be able to prove to authorities there that they meet the criteria to be covered by refugee protections. Not every asylum seeker will be recognized as a refugee, and as a consequence, if you're not recognized as a refugee, you don't get refugee status and you don't get asylum. Therefore, in order to attain asylum, you need to be classed as a refugee. So in essence, refugees and asylum seekers are the same. They are on a line, a spectrum, and you have to meet both to be able to stay in the country. So it doesn't matter. So this guy just filibustered again. He's using an exceptional amount of nuance to then try to claim that this senator doesn't know what he's talking about by saying, actually, a refugee is different from an asylum seeker. But that's because refugee status hasn't yet been determined, and you won't get asylum if you can't prove that you're a refugee. What the fuck is this guy doing? This guy is completely incompetent.
Rulemaking that we issued, the comment period of which closed yesterday.
You've had 2 years to adopt a policy like I just described. Why haven't you done it?
So, Senator, what we have done is it.
But why haven't you done that?
We have surged enforcement resources. We have
Why haven't
developed.
you just adopted? Please, if you would, Mr. Secretary, answer my question.
It is my understanding.
Why haven't you adopted unilaterally a safe third country policy that would stop, except for children, all the folks from the Northern Triangle countries, all the folks from Venezuela, all the folks from Cuba, all the folks from the Middle East from coming into our country? Why haven't you done that?
Senator, it's my understanding that those are two things. It is my understanding that those agreements do require.
You don't have to have an agreement with anybody. It can be a policy established by the Department of Homeland Security.
Senator, I'd have to review
Shut the fuck up.
Can you shut the fuck up?
I'm going to have to shut the fuck up now because I've had enough of this guy. I would not be able to do what these guys do. This guy is a complete asshole who should be sacked. He should actually be sacked. He has not proven his worth in any way, shape, or form. He's not proven that he knows exactly why he's doing certain stuff. He's not shown that he's got any data to give an objective rationale behind the basis of what they do in relation to whatever policy that they're doing. And he's just being a total cunt. So I'm going to end this here by listening to some Dragon Rider. And I absolutely love this song. And it's the words that I particularly really like. So I stop that screen and I present this one, and this is going to be it. So I am going to
say goodbye.
Her ears won't hear, her eyes won't see. Heart's desire masked by the TV. Words I say, sold out by the fame. Romance cheapened, this world's to blame. Every sweet line covered in ads. Can't shine bright, lost in fashion fads. Wanna impress, but I hit the wall. Truth feels fake, are we gonna lose it all? And every time I talk to her, she's heard it all before. Every word I say to her just makes her laugh the more. On the box another line, falls my hopes to ever try. No reprieve from mankind's fall. Are we gonna lose it all? She's seen it all, golden glimmer fades. My words sound hollow, cliche parade. Rose petals wither, charm decay. What's left to say when it's all been played? And every time I talk to her, she's heard it all before. Every word I say to her just makes her laugh the more. On the box another line, falls my hopes to ever try. No reprieve from mankind's fall. Are we gonna lose it all? Billboards stole my burning fire. Every whisper lost to a dire choir. Masked slogans, love's a liar. Can't compete with that glittered fire. Promises echo in empty halls. Silver tongue, yet no love falls. Are we gonna lose it all? Her silence, my final downfall. And every time I talk to her, she's heard it all before.
Things that men do to upset women.
Breathe. Just stop it. We don't like it. It pisses us off. Stop breathing, okay?
Just like a woman.
Sticks and stones may break my bones. There will always be something to offend a feminist.